Well, we're back in the studio again and getting ready to do a painting that focuses on another snow scene of a forest that has some new fallen snow and its reflections in the water. And in this process, we're going to try a couple new techniques of some dry brush and creating some lost and found edges. But one thing that we're still thinking about tonal values, and I want you to kind of squint your eyes and look at this photograph and see how that there's a big mid value in the painting of the back forest and its reflection, and we're going to attempt to use that as our mid value in this painting. Basically using three colors: a yellow ochre, a little cad red, and a lot of cobalt blue. That's the major color in this painting. With this first application, I was working on dry paper with yellow ochre to establish the shapes of the trees. And once I was happy with that, I'm adding the cobalt blue directly into the wet yellow ochre to cool it down and make it feel like these trees are in shadow, and basically to strengthen the shape against the sky. The sky in this case is just the white of the paper right now. And this is all done with the wet on wet technique, which we've been practicing, taking advantage of the nature of watercolor and letting the media mix the paint on the page for us. You can see in some places the yellow's coming through more than others. In other places the blue is more strong. This is a natural result of working with the media in the wet into wet fashion. We're going to approach the water area in the same way, but before getting started, I want to just mark with a very pale warm color where the the fallen tree is in the watered area, the watery area of the muddy river. And then I start with the same sort of sequence of yellow ochre, a bit of cad red into the muddy river. You can tell I'm using the red a bit stronger in this case. And I want the value to be slightly darker, not exactly the same as the blue above. The same, it'll be close in tonality, but not exactly the same. And I establish that red tone, pinkish tone first, and then follow it with a darker, thicker application of blue close to the shoreline, and then I'm bringing it down towards the bottom of the painting. Also, I have my board at an angle, which promotes this vertical falling of the color. And in this type of painting, where you're painting a reflection, it's ideal to have that sort of vertical nature to the strokes and to the veils of color that create the reflection. Careful to avoid the branch or the submerged log that's in the middle of the water and its reflection. Careful to keep the painting wet at all times. When it starts to dry, and it starts to dry near the far shore, the upper part of the painting, I'll take my bottle, my mister, and just lightly spray that area to keep it glistening. And I continue to work this reflection, making it a little darker, a little warmer, to contrast the area up above. Still a great deal of cobalt blue in this wash, and as it dries, that blue will come out a little more. But here and there, I add a little more of the cad red and let it drift down. So this is very much a kind of fluid process. We're taking advantage of the nature of watercolor, letting it mix the colors for us, and letting gravity too play a role in the way the color mixes together. While it's wet up above, you noticed I'm placing some dark strokes along the shoreline. This, again, is taking advantage of the condition of the paper. It's still wet, and so these strokes that I add are dissolving a little bit. The edges that result are soft. And that's an important note to make, because it gives the lines that I'm adding strength, but it doesn't let them be overpowering if we use that soft edge. And this is a difficult part of the painting, is doing this wash, because there's so many features to it. There's the layering of color. Now there's the addition of some stronger darks into the water while it's still wet, and trying to maintain the shape of the reflected sky as well as the shape of the reflected trees. It's a difficult wash. What you see me doing now is I'm working with a very light mixture of blue and gray to just basically wet the paper. I'm creating the profile of the tree to the left, but at the same time I'm moving some of that water into the upper trees in the middle and to the left. This is to give me a wet area to drag my strokes through. So I'm going to be applying some stronger strokes of color to create the trees, the vertical trees. And the paper is still wet, so in places this stroke is going to dissolve and really kind of melt and become nothing. In other places we're going to see a strong, sharp-edged branch. And this combination of lost edges and found edges is helping us in this painting to create that sort of delicate branch that has snow on it, and that's appearing and disappearing into the background, into the snow, and so on. It's a little more concentrated with the lower part of the trees, the trunks of the trees, and those come to bear on the reflections that we've already created. The reflections were placed first, which is a little unusual. In this case, we were trying to take advantage of the wet paper, so it was predetermined that I would do that, but I'm trying to place those trees above in relation to the reflections below. Working now into that mixture with just a little darker paint to accentuate the trees, help them to come forward just a little more. And I'll continue this sort of manipulation until I feel I've captured the shape of the tree on the left by means of some dry brush and some negative painting, as you can see now, and by establishing the darks in the trunks of the trees that are painted with a lost and found technique. So this is sort of a balancing point. You don't want to get too strong and overpower the painting. At the same time, you don't want to be too weak and have it fade away to nothing as it dries. And once you feel it's relatively secure, move on. Don't linger too long. And now I'm attacking that the log that's floating in the middle of the water. It's not uncommon to see this in kind of wild areas. There's a fallen tree and it's sticking up from the water. Provides a nice relief from these vertical reflections. Visually, it's an exciting part of the painting and even becomes the center of interest. So I'm adding some accents to the log to establish it, adding more accents in the shore and behind some of the trees to pull them out. And I'll make the adjustments until I feel I've reached a sort of the limit that I can do it without getting too heavy. Next, I want to address that snowbank in the distance. It's too white. I want to push it back into the painting, especially that far edge. Maybe the near edge will leave some white there, but the far edge I want to push back into the painting, so I add some blue and some other color to do that. More adjustments to the left shore and to the reflection and to the tree that's above. And I'll keep adjusting it either with color or with water if I want to soften an area until I feel I'm getting the look that I'm happy with. And now I'll add some real strong darks under the tree. my strongest darks. Again, a mixture of cobalt blue and cadmium red, but the paint quality is more like butter at this point. Very strong, thick paint. Sometimes painted into a wet area, so it's going to dissolve a little, but when I work under the tree, it's quite thick and it's going to make a bold statement. Pull that tree forward and at the same time push the background into the painting a little more. And we'll carry that darkness into the reflection of the fallen tree as well. Here you can see the result of those strong darks in the tree. They help to bring the tree forward. We've left some white of the paper, primarily on the fallen tree in the river. The other whites that are in the painting, including the white of the sky and the far shore, we've subdued a little bit, either with a warm color or with blue. And that's our winter scene.